Well, hello, and welcome to the Astrology Channel. It is our first episode of 2025. Horoscopes are not quite back as yet, but this is a little bit of a warm-up before horoscopes come back. We're back with our Outer Planet series, where we keep track of the outer planets through the bounds. This time we'll be talking about Neptune going into Saturn's bound in Pisces. Earlier in the year when we started doing this, we actually had Neptune in there, but now Neptune is out of retrograde. It's moving forward and getting ready to move into Aries, but not before it spends a couple months in this last bound in Pisces. As always, I'm with my good friend Kyle Pierce. Hi, Kyle.
Hello, how are you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm just living and settling into this new space. For the first time in a while, it feels like the whole New Year, New Me really rings true for some reason. What about you?
Same old me, but technically a new year. The thing with New Year's, I think ever since I started studying astrology, like the new year just stopped meaning anything to me because it's not rooted in astrology at all. So it doesn't actually feel like a meaningful transition because it's just a number.
Yes, I hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for my true new year, my solar return, but we'll talk about that another day. Cool. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual transit at hand, which is Neptune going into Saturn's bounds in Pisces. Neptune is, of course, in Pisces. It is direct Mars's decade in Saturn's terms, conjunct Venus and the North Node, and co-present with the bound ruler, who is Saturn. Very interesting Neptune ingress.
When it comes to this bound in general of Pisces, the Saturn bound reaching the end of Pisces and to some degree symbolically the end of the zodiac, we're sort of looking to put all of our efforts towards a thing and hoping that it is a worthwhile investment. And this last bound is kind of where we find out, when all is said and done, if it was worth it in the end. And I think it's an interesting topic for Neptune to be dealing with. Neptune can both create sort of mist around the answer to that question, but also create sort of mirages around it, confusion about whether or not something was worth it. Yeah, I think having Venus there sort of points to a more positive interpretation of feeling like things were worth it, or we're getting the benefits of something, that everything came to the conclusion that we are finding is in line with, maybe some of our ideas, or it's coming to a beautiful conclusion. However, the North Node also creates extra confusion there. And there's something about becoming overly attached to an idea of what the conclusion is, and maybe needing to hold on too tightly to it, where even though something is maybe wrapping up as Neptune leaves Pisces, most of us are going to continue on. And I just wonder how this over-attachment to something that's happening now, being the end-all be-all conclusion that we were always hoping for, how we carry that into the future, I think, is what might end up defining this. Because we don't always understand what Neptune's doing in the moment, but kind of in hindsight, we see, oh, that was the zeitgeist at that time.
I find it interesting with what you were talking about with the Venus, North Node, Neptune conjunction, because Venus will also station direct at around this point, because we're heading towards a Venus retrograde very soon. I think that the thing that you talked about this question of whether the sacrifice was worth it, or whether this journey was worth it, or whether what is worth fighting for, as Neptune even heads into Aries. And I feel like we're in this point where we're thinking a lot about that, but also not entirely certain of what that is yet. So I think that one of the things that we can take from this is just the sense of, yes, finality, but also the, I don't know, because Neptune always makes me think of movies and stories and all that stuff, and it can be the finality of a storyline that has been going on through your life, or this sort of fantasy that you've been living through in one way or another kind of coming to an end, and then kind of leaving you with that will there be a sequel sort of feeling? And I think that one of the dangers of just thinking about the Neptune into Aries ingress, also just in context of all of this, is that we might kind of just try and grab at the first thing that shows up to fill that spot of that story that is kind of wrapping up. I feel like that's the Venus North Node. It's like the desire to live that sort of fantasy all over again, even as it's currently ending. But I think it also has the potential to end on a very good note with the Venus-Neptune conjunction. And I think that that can also be the thing that sometimes feels deflating. It's like, oh, this ended in such a good note. Is there any more good than this? Is this like really my peak? I feel like this can be like a little bit of this whole configuration. And that's kind of what I was trying to capture with the image, because I had this elderly lady at the threshold of some sort of like ice island. She's just about to step into the ocean. And then in the background, she sees like an obelisk and this flame. And I was just thinking about the flame as the Aries ingress, and like that thing that we might be reaching towards, and that thing that we might be trying to grab, but also this sense of being in between spaces where you're leaving this cold Saturnine place in Pisces for the heat of Aries. I think that's the question that we're trying to answer now. What gets to go? What gets to stay? I think it's also interesting to think about how Neptune is in Saturn's bounds and also co-present with Saturn, and we're heading towards a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. I feel like this also can be a bit of a training wheels for the Saturn-Neptune conjunction.
Because Saturn is coming back through this bound as well, this is like where the story ends, right? In Pisces, the grand narrative, where hopefully, the end of the movie wraps everything up in a nice bow, and they all lived happily ever after and rode off into the sunset. That like revisiting that place to me kind of speaks to like maybe we dip into the new story, and some of us don't like it. Maybe some of us try to like roll back the credits and just try to like hold on to the way things were when everything seemed perfect. And I think that maybe part of the lesson here is that with like Neptune and the North Node, like the everything seemed perfect is a picture, or you could say an illusion, or just like a moment in time that can't be like, nothing lasts forever, right? And I think the Venus here can help in maybe showing us how to enjoy the moment while it lasts, but also let it go when it is time to release it. Whether everything's perfect or whether you're living in a nightmare in this particular moment, that is transitory and may or may not match the facts on the ground.
I think one of the things that can be really helpful during this period, I know it's going to sound so cheesy, but to kind of just allow for these things to kind of die or fall into place or just transition into whatever the next thing is. Even if you don't like where that thing is going, I think it's important to remember that Neptune is one of those planets where it's totally invisible and totally outside of our like grasp. It's just something that will happen and will do its thing whether we like it or not. It's more about the choices that we're all making collectively as opposed to individual choices. And if the world is making a certain choice that you don't like, I think the question is not so much about how to escape from that, which can be a Neptunian thing, but how to maybe help diffuse it, maybe be on the more yang side of Neptune, where you're trying to blur those things out so they just disappear. But it is a 14-year-long process with Neptune always, so it's not something that can happen overnight. But yeah, I think that's my message today. Let it go. Kind of sucks sometimes, but could also be pretty exciting for some other people. I'm more on the exciting side of things, I think. I feel like there's a lot to look forward to with Neptune and Aries also. I think that one of the big things that I'm looking forward is just the sort of more real Neptune that can come with that. Like Neptune in Pisces, I feel like it can really emphasize these ideals and the dreams. Like, wouldn't it be nice if the world were as such? And I feel like as we get ready for this new story, it's less about the wouldn't it be nice and more about the like, let's actually just go and make that real somehow. People might have
Yeah.
interesting ideas on how to do that, but at least we're doing something about it.
Yeah, I guess we're maybe reshaping the headcanon for ourselves that will like inspire and guide the next adventure. There will be a shared canon, likely, but there were, if you really don't like it, like you can you can spin that and tweak it in order to shape how you want to go on the next, the next go round.
Yeah, totally. We're about to go into the sequel, but the first movie ended in a really good note. For there to be a sequel, there has to be some sort of ordeal that triggers the hero or the main character to go do whatever the fuck is it that they're gonna do. And I feel like we're just
Yeah.
in that moment of that trigger being beginning to brew. But I think that we are still in that happy ending, so to speak, just kind of to reference the Neptune Venus North Node conjunction. So I think that we can also allow ourselves to maybe feel a little nostalgic about the good things about the past. I think that that can also be a good way of working with this potentially. I hope that this didn't end on a deflating note. It's the first episode of the year, and we're like, everything's ending, but hopefully in a good note, especially with the Neptune Venus North Node thing. If you like what you saw, we'll be back very soon with our weekly horoscopes, and we also have a series of new shows that are coming up later in the year. You can stay tuned for. But for now, this is it for February. I think there should be a horoscope coming soon, but you probably won't see us for a little second. But if you would like to see us sooner, you can always book a reading with me. I am Joe G. I am an astrologer, and you can find me at themercuryrising.com.
You can also book a reading with me at kylepierceastrologer.com.
Sweet. Right, guys, we will see you very soon. Good luck and happy dreaming or waking up, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
See you next time.